Mike Grabham here again today. Hey, we are talking today. We're going to be talking about experiences and what we actually learn from those experiences. So normally it's the failures that we're talking about when we learn stuff, but I'm going to talk about three stories that I've gone through in my business career, and some of them failures and what I learned from those. Actually, what I got out of that experience. So hello there. My name is Mike Grabham, and I help founders and inventors take an idea and turn into an income generating business. That's what I do. I do that every day, all day. So if I can be of help, let me know. So I do these live shows just to kind of throw out things and take deep dives into different topics, and we learn stuff on at least a couple times a week, hopefully. So tomorrow we are talking about pitch decks and like how to target the right investor, whether that's angel investor or a VC. I've got a guest on from the Boston area, Jason Krause, so he'll be on with me tomorrow at 11:30. So look forward to seeing you there. So today we are talking about experiences and what we learn from those experiences. So I have three experiences. Oh, excuse me. One thing I want to talk about: the question of the day. The question of the day is, if I could give you something today, would it be getting a new customer or keeping a customer? What would you rather have? Would you rather have today? Would you rather have keeping your customer, like keeping them happy, maybe getting another order from that customer, or getting a new customer? Which one's better? Leave in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what's going on out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them as so I can answer them on the fly. If you were experiencing last week, I actually posted it for us that we could have anyone on the live show, and I posted the link in the show. So we'll still do that again this week, not today. So here's the story. So story number one: one company I had early on, it was actually my first what I would call a real company, where we had employees and all the stuff that you have in a company. And what I learned there really early on was we had a great salesperson. It was, like I said, my partner and I, we purchased this existing company, and so we had just a fabulous salesperson that had all the relationships of one of the products we sold. So he was totally everyone loved the guy. He was a super nice guy, and so what happened was, that part of our business grew really fast, because what we saw early on was this piece of the segment of the company was really the profit generator of the company. So we definitely put some emphasis into it and kind of improved a few things when we bought the company. And so I'm going to mention his name, but his name, we'll call him Dave. So Dave had all of his relationships for this segment of the company, and when the company we were just killing it in this piece of the company. What happened about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, is Doug walks in the office and says, hey, I'm quitting. I'm going to work for a competitor. There's only two competitors, and there was only us and another competitor in town. So it wasn't like, there wasn't anyone else to go to. So there was nothing we could do. There's not one thing we do. We had no non-compete. We had no employee agreement. We had nothing at all. So he was literally able to walk out the door and start selling, for the other company. I don't remember what the other company gave him. I'm sure they gave him more money, but there's absolutely nothing we could do. So what did we learn? Well, I learned early on that any key employee that you have, and I don't care how big your company is, because I think we had 6 or 7 employees at that time, maybe 8 at the most. So if you have a key employee, make sure you get some kind of contract in place, whether that's a non-compete, whether that's an employee agreement. Obviously, both are best and should be. Any key person in your company should have that signed. So get that done early on. It's something that many of us just don't do. We just don't think it's important, whatever. But this person was probably, I would say, he's responsible for maybe probably 50 to 60% of our revenue, and probably 60 to 70% of our profit. One person in our company was really the key point for that. And so, so that person just walked out of our office one day. Again, we had no recourse whatsoever. So the learning is get a contract in place for key employees. I don't care if your company's 2 employees or 400 employees. Get a contract in place for non-compete and employee agreement of some kind. So it protects yourself from doing that. Okay, second story today is, so for those of you joining us today, Mike Grabham here, we're talking about experiences and what we learned. So I'm talking about 3 experiences I had in my business career and what the experience was and what I learned from that. And also the question of the day, let me put the question up the day is, let me show that up for everybody. So there you go. The question of the day is, what is a better day? Getting a new customer or keeping your current customer happy? So what's better for you? Obviously, both. Isaac says both. Well, of course, I would want both. But if you could only choose one, what would it be? Like, if you can only choose one thing, what would it be for you to choose one of those 2 things? Okay, so story number 2 is, so this was a company that I started with. Somebody introduced me, a friend of mine introduced me to these basically 3 people in a garage. They were all engineers, all all of them pretty darn bright in their own rights. But there was one engineer was better than the other 2, but there was 3 people hacking away at this basically data transfer technology that allowed big pieces of data to be transferred really quickly over wireless networks. Now, again, remember that the time frame is, so you can understand this, was about 2001, probably late 2001, mid 2001, mid to late 2001 is probably about right. So there wasn't a lot of big, the iPhone didn't exist yet. So lots of things didn't exist in the wireless transfer, but they were starting, the data transfer was starting to happen. So I met these 3 people in a garage, engineers, deep engineers. And so what we learned from this process was, we ended up starting a company around this technology. We raised a couple $1 million over the life of about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years over that time, to raise a couple $1 million. And the company was a real thing, man. We had employees in both Canada and the U.S. So it was a real deal. The product was actually ended up doing pretty well. We ended up selling the company to a small public company up in Canada. But anyway, so here's what happened. The person who introduced me, who was a friend of mine, and so he made the introduction, and we kind of made this kind of quasi agreement that he would kind of be involved. Now, there really wasn't a really great position for him to be involved because he wasn't necessarily a product guy. He was more of a finance guy. So what happened was he ended up getting involved in the company, and we raised a little bit of money, and then pretty soon things were starting to kind of blow up because he was doing just weird stuff. Because again, he wasn't a good fit for the company. It just didn't fit for what his skill set was. So, but we never had any kind of agreement in place. We never had any kind of, we never sat down and even talked about it, which was really the big mistake, because he was a totally normal, logical guy. He wasn't irrational by any stretch of the imagination. But so we ended up, basically we had to, kind of kick him out. I mean, he still kept his shares in the company, but if we would have had the conversation early on, like first couple of months of, hey, here's the roles of what we need to fill, there would have been a very clear conversation around, you really don't fit anywhere. We don't need your skill set. And we really didn't, probably even for the first 2 years, didn't need him. We probably need him a little bit towards the end, but we easily could have contracted it out. So it just wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a great fit. So, but what I learned from that was, if we have the early conversations, and these are very hard conversations sometimes, in this case, it wouldn't have been a hard conversation. It was just lack of insight on my part and his part. So we just didn't do it. But if you have a company and you're starting, you really need to have some discussion early on about what are your roles for the founders. Just talk about what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. You need to have a real discussion about it, and you need to put it on a piece of paper, right? So again, it doesn't have to be a 25-page contract, but you do have to start documenting things at that early stage of your company. Otherwise, bad things will happen. There's so many bad founder stories that happen and happened over the years. I've been around, whether it's not necessarily been in my company, but lots of friends and friends of friends. So just have the conversation, talk about what you are good at, what you want to do, where you see the vision. So all 3 or 2 or 5 of you as founders are on the same page at the very early stage, it's the start of the game. So that's what the best founders do. They do all this stuff early on. They get all the people on board, everybody on the same vision, everybody knowing what everybody else should be doing. So you just kind of kill it when you really start to hit momentum, and you don't have time to do these kind of things. So that's the thing for understanding the people you're working with. So if you're just joining me, give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're out there. So I am talking today about experiences I've had and what I've learned from those experiences. So to give you a quick rundown of what we went through, story number 1 was about having employee contract of some kind for key employees that are very important in your company. Second one we just went through was having a discussion early on with the founders and co-founders and knowing where the vision goes, who's doing what, and what skill sets are needed. And last but not least, here's a story that, and also, sorry, one other thing, the question of the day is what is a better day? Getting a new customer or keeping a current customer? What's a better day to you? Just let me know in the comments. Say it's either better to do one or the other. You can't do both. I'm just saying, what's a better day? You would love to do both, I'm sure, but what's a better day? So Isaac said both, and yeah, I would like to say both, but I'm trying to get a read on this. What's a better day for you? Is it keeping a customer or getting a new customer? So the last story today it's about a person named Susan. I changed the name, but so it was a friend of mine who asked for some help and said, hey, I need some help. I'm hiring my first kind of real employee. Obviously the company was small. He had a couple contractors who was helping him. But he's like, I'm hiring my first kind of a key employee. This is a pretty important hire for him. So he said, hey, can you help me hire this person? I'm like, sure, be happy to help. Right. This was years ago. This was 15 years ago, probably 12 years ago or so. So I was, I interviewed people. I went through resumes. I did I did all this stuff. I'll do it, and I'll bring you in on all this, any second interview that I think is a good person. You'll be in on that second interviews, and then third or whatever goes on. So that's what we did. So went through quite a few people. I think we had like 5 or 6 or 7 interviews, and one person we hired, again, her name was Susan. I said, this is a great person, take a look at it. So we interviewed, and at the end of the day, we ended up hiring. But here's what we did. And I actually, I didn't know to do this. It was actually a discussion between all 3 of us, meaning Susan, and my friend and myself, on how we wanted to bring her on. So Susan was like, this is what I would choose to do, because she actually did some part-time work for some other people. So it was an accounting, bookkeeping position. So she said, I would love to come on. How about doing it for 60 days as a contractor? So I agreed, like, that's great. Let's do it. I ended up saying, let's do it for 90 days. And then at any point in time, we feel like we want to convert you to employee and you feel it's a good fit, then we'll do that anytime in this 90 days or after the 90 days. So that's what we did. So here's what I've done ever since then. Any key employee early on, it's always work before hire. So again, this is not rocket science, man. This is simple stuff, right? If you hire a key employee and say it's one of the first 10 people, right? If you hire that person, don't give them stock, don't pay them as employee, hire them as a contractor, right? You may pay them slightly more, but not dramatically more. You may pay them slightly more to do that, but man, you're way safer doing this because you start to learn things where they're good and bad at, because resumes are only so good. And even when you're hiring them from someone or someone that's highly recommended, like they maybe work with one of your friends, it still doesn't mean that you match with them, your style and et cetera, your company, your culture that you're creating. So please, 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 it will save you so many headaches in the future. Hire the person as a contractor for the first at least 60 days. I mean, you could do 30 days, but I would do 60 days because you can always say after 30 days, you know what, we love you, let's make your employee. but you can't if you're not liking them, and you need to transition them out. It takes you time to find a new person. So give yourself 60 days. Don't, there's no reason to kill yourself. So that's the thing that we learned there, was just always give yourself some time to either replace the person or learn that if it's a good fit or not. So those are my 3 things today. Real life stories that happened to me in my career, and what I actually learned from those things, right? So that is the thing. So today's question, as you can see on the screen, what's a better day to you? Getting a new customer or keeping a current customer? Just leave one in the comments. I know both would be great. Sergey said, yeah, he would keep the customers because he doesn't know if the new customer is actually going to stay around. So he doesn't. That's it's a good point, right? So he's saying I'd rather have keep the customer happy than get the new one if I could choose. So again, that's the question today. Leave your comments in the question. Leave your question answers in the comments, and because I'm doing this research as we go. And if there's anything in the comments, shoot a message, any kind of question. I'll be happy to answer it on the fly. I'll be happy to respond to it after we go off live. So that's it for today. Mike Grabham here from sunny Seattle, Washington today, sharing my stories and what we actually learned. So 3 things. 1, key employees, get a contract of some kind, non-compete employee contract. 2, when you start your company, have a discussion with the founders and make sure everybody's on the same page with vision, skill sets, priorities, what everybody's doing, so you don't have these big founder issues fairly early on in the process. And 3 is when you're hiring for the first time a key employee, don't hire them as an employee first, hire them as a contractor first for at least 60 days, as I recommend, 30 days at the very minimum. So that's my keys today. I will see you tomorrow. We're having Jason Krause from Boston, Mass. on talking about pitch decks and targeting VCs or angel investors, how we do that. So until next time, take care. See ya. Bye-bye.